ESPN presents Major League Baseball Magazine. This week's cover story, an essay or two on the 50-year legacy of the splendid Splinter.
He has been himself, almost to a fault, every day of his entire life.
We'll find out what folks are saying about the scrappy career of Rowdy Richard.
You ought to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think I certainly had the credentials.
And we'll tease you with the Scooter Cam to touch on whose tongue is twisting.
Hector Villanueva. What am I looking for?
Villanueva. This is Warner Fussell for Major League Baseball Magazine. "50 years ago, Ted Williams hit .406 for the Red Sox. No one has hit .400 since. Coinciding with this 50th anniversary is a new book entitled Ted Williams, A Portrait in Words and Pictures, compiled by Glenn Stout and Dick Johnson.
We have a mutual friend who brought the book to Florida about 3 weeks after it was issued and brought it to Ted. He sat and looked through every page of the book in utter silence. And at the end of flipping the last page and closing the jacket, he said, "I want to order 100 of these." And in typical Ted fashion, he said, "But I want to send the check to the Jimmy Fund." And to hear that he wanted to send the books out to the players he had played with on the Red Sox and even players he had played with in high school was really the highest compliment Glenn and I could be paid, and we were thrilled to hear that.
The book includes hundreds of rare photographs and essays from some of New England's finest writers. Here now are some of those authors with their thoughts and essays on Ted.
I think if Ted Williams had hit .980 and perhaps, say, 75 home runs in Boston, which he probably wouldn't have done because he didn't emphasize the home runs. But if he had hit .980 in a given season, there would have been complaints about that other .20. I'm serious about that. Time in its habitual cruelty occasionally lets up a bit and forgives us all our lapses. And as Ted Williams and the rest of us have become 3 decades older, it's rewarding to us spectators to see the now elder statesman of the batted ball savoring at least somewhat the approbation and gratitude he neither got nor enjoyed fully while he was engaged in doing what he did so well. I realize many baseball fathers have nudged their kids and pointed when some hero of other days from another team appeared in public view and assured those children unimpressed that Mantle, Joe D., Sandy Koufax, Stan Musial, or Hank Aaron was the greatest ball player who ever took the field. Well, we older parties in New England have done that in our turn, but we have an advantage over all who have made competing claims. When we say that of number 9, we are speaking God's own truth.
He's sort of a thinking man's player. He's someone that wants to be a writer's player. The fact is, when you talk about Williams, you're talking about frustration, someone who never seemed to be his best in the clutch. He's sort of the original stylish loser. See, I was from the New York area and always a Red Sox fan. That meant I was a masochist and a stylish loser right from the beginning. Well, Ted is kind of the god of our tribe. Ted Williams was not born a star. He was not the best player in his neighborhood or in high school. Ted was awkward, quote, all arms and legs flailing. But he had the supreme desire to hit, to practice, to never stop trying to get better. He lived in San Diego where he could play all year, frequently until late at night. In the minors and the first years in Boston, Ted carried hitting into the outfield where he would practice his swing while playing right. He practiced in front of mirrors, with towels, constantly talked hitting, analyzed pitchers. Ted said he could tell you the count, location, type of pitch, and describe the flight of his first 300 Major League home runs. He drove people crazy, but he became one of the most interesting, if not the greatest hitter who ever lived.
he came as close to achieving perfection as a hitter as anyone in our time, not only in terms of the numbers that he generated, but also in terms of the remarkable attitude that he had. He could take a strike zone and break it down into its component parts and talk about hitting as a science. And in some cases, when he managed for a while, for example, could actually convey that knowledge successfully to lesser mortals. Ted Williams is the stuff of stories, and in the stories you can find anything you like. He is the monstrously arrogant young man who said that he wanted to be known as the greatest hitter who had ever lived, feuded with newspaper writers, and spat at the crowd. He is the gracious rookie who visited children in Boston hospitals and stayed in touch with them and with their families for years. He is the scientist who broke into component parts the act of hitting a baseball and talked about it after his retirement with such zeal that the first time Carl Yastrzemski met him, Yaz was scared to death. He spent weeks trying to stay out of Williams's way, half convinced that Ted was crazy and worried that he'd never understand what the master was talking about. He is the pure hitter of whom Johnny Pesky once said, "Oh, hell." He used to tell me he just saw the ball and hit it.
When I think of Ted Williams, I think of perfection. 406 isn't perfection, but it's as close as anyone's come in a very long time. A guy who went to do the best job he could and did. Here in our minimalist pavilion is something most Williams-esque. The 8 times he led the American League in walks. The achievement was controversial among many, from umpires to pitchers to the tradesmen Williams scornfully called the knights of the keyboard. To a perfectionist like Williams, a walk was, as he said, a hell of a play. It gets a runner to first base. The fabled Williams' eyesight was a boon to his hitting and a bane to pitchers. He struck out 10% of the time, as opposed to Babe Ruth's 16%. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, American League umpires created an ethereal strike zone. If Mr. Williams did not swing at it, it must have been a ball.
What I admire about Ted is the fact that he has been himself and no one else, almost to a fault, his entire life. America gives a lot of lip service to being an individual, yet doesn't quite know what to do with one when it meets one. With Ted Williams, I think this was the case, yet Ted never backed off, never blinked, and to this very day, he is no one, absolutely no one else but himself. Beginning in 1941 and continuing through the next decade, Williams and DiMaggio were twin stars of the highest magnitude in a galaxy that contained no others. DiMaggio, austere and remote, burned with a fine white heat. Locked in the same orbit was Williams, a smoldering, explosive red giant. Each man was best defined in terms of the other. When asked of DiMaggio, Williams remarked, "He's the greatest ball player I've ever seen." When asked who was baseball's greatest hitter, DiMaggio succinctly replied, "Williams." In 1941, the two men fired the imagination of the nation. Kids playing sandlot ball invariably chose to be either Joe or Ted. Comparisons between the two inevitably led to a series of what-ifs. What if Williams enjoyed DiMaggio's surrounding cast? What if DiMaggio had been paired with brother Dom in the Red Sox outfield? The parabola of each man's 1941 season contains the contrast. DiMaggio's long, swooping, graceful arc of a spectacular 56-game achievement. Williams, the determined, tenacious playing of a season-long accomplishment. To choose either is to diminish the other. They were different, but complementary. That difference contains the magnificence of each.
In the news, where there are lights and cameras, everyone, it seems, wants to get in on the action, whether they belong there or not.
Hello. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. To the left.
Move over a little bit,
To the left. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, we're moving.
No, she wants you to get out of the picture.
Oh, all right, I'll duck down. I'll duck down. Go ahead.
That's a better angle there. Go right out of the picture.
Prior to tonight's game, Kevin Costner, great actor and now movie director. He took some infield with the Rangers and should stick to acting and directing.
We have a new cameraman working the low first. It's Charlie Hayes.
Once again, he was over there before.
He's not real comfortable with the zoom yet. Kind of in, backs it up a little bit. At least it's in focus, Charlie.
She was talking to the cameraman. I thought she was talking to us, Ralph.
She's mad, too, now.
She wants him to move that camera out of the way.
Yeah, move the camera, will you?
There's Charlie Sheen in the bullpen. The Wild Thing. Remember Major League's the movie?
That's funny.
Oh, that's great.
She might make the film. The Major League this week.
In baseball, cameras aren't the only source for faux pas. For microphones, too, can truly twist a tongue.
Hector Villanueva. What am I looking for?
Villanueva.
Is he still with the club?
Maybe. I don't know. Better check.
Oh, he's 1 for 2.
That'll bring up the catcher, Hector Villanueva. Hector 0 for 2 with a walk. And this one is gone. Goodbye. Hector Villanova with a long home run, and the Cubs lead 5-1.
Then again, no one ever said that calling a home run was easy.
And this ball is hit in the air to deep right field. It's way back, going, and it is gone. It is caught.
That's gone. That might be over the roof. Maybe, but it's going to stay in. I thought that one was out of here. All this for a simple picture. Now, she wants to take a picture of the cameraman waving. And now more instructions, probably asking his name, and now a little wave. Okay. I think that worked out quite nicely.
And now, once again, Sue Essler and Bill Crabe as they seek to visit every major and minor league park in the country.
The 3-hour drive from Macon, Georgia brings us to Savannah and Grayson Stadium, the home of the single-A Savannah Cardinals.
Right now the infield looks nice, but after tomorrow night's game it may not look as nice as this. Tomorrow night they're having a diamond dig. Apparently they're in 5 different spots. They're going to bury some diamonds in cubic zirconias, and any woman in attendance can come out with a shovel or a spoon or anything she wants and start digging and looking for the diamonds.
And a couple hours to the south in Jacksonville, Florida, we come to the 38th Stadium on Sports Tour, Wolfson Park, home of the Jacksonville Suns. And we get here on what figures to be a pretty busy Friday night in Jacksonville. Famous Chicken making his appearance tonight for the Suns. Here's the Jacksonville Suns pitching coach getting some Jacksonville Sun himself. In every park we've been in so far, there is an oddity, something that separates it from the rest. And perhaps the biggest thing that comes to mind at Wolfson Park in Jacksonville is this. This is a grass infield. Normally, inside this line here, this would all be dirt. Instead, it's a beautiful stretch of grass. This is Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the home of the Fort Lauderdale Yankees.
Here with us this evening to draw our first visit, please give them a big welcome, is Bill Crabe and Sue Essler.
10 hits on the scoreboard for Fort Lauderdale Yankees represents a fairly costly night for the club. For every base that the Yankee hitters get, $10 is given out to fans in the ballpark. So this is it. Tonight, Fort Lauderdale.
And the ball, I got the balls, I cut the balls in here, and I had the flexibility, and it just was tremendous. I used that my whole career.
In many ways, Dick Bartell was a great player, but was never recognized by the Hall of Fame. His peers know better.
He was a valuable man on a ball club. You make winners out of players like Dick Bartell. And they've got some guys in there that I would take 9 Dick Bartells and play some other guys in the Hall of Fame. I'd play him anytime. Bartell played the whole ball game.
He was a tough cookie. Now, why he's not in the Hall of Fame, I don't know. With the record that he has.
I get so many letters from people, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame? Why aren't you this and that? You ought to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think I certainly had the credentials. My lifetime average as a shortstop is 283, which isn't anything to laugh at. And my fielding was good. I played in all the World Series I did. And everybody writes, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame?
And now it's time for the Upper Deck Stat of the Week. Nobody does baseball like Upper Deck.
Our stat of the week stems from the competitiveness of Will Clark, who has a tendency to thrill you with his effort.
2 balls, 1 strike to Will Clark. Fastball, and it's all over! It's all over! Caminetti with a bid for a base hit. Will Clark throws, and he gets it on to Birkin. Clark was a good first baseman when he got here. But it seems like every year he gets better. High drive into deep right field. It is a grand slam home run. Will Clark, one of the great hitters in the National League. One of the great hitters in baseball.
There isn't much that Will Clark can't do, until, that is, you read the fine print. For next week, the memories of Frank Crosetti.
Being a Yankee was something special. It's really hard to describe it. It really is. You'd have to be a ball player and put that uniform on maybe to realize it.
This is Warner Fussell.
Promotional considerations furnished by United Airlines, together with United Express serving over 200 cities in the U.S. and around the world. Come fly the friendly skies. And by Major League Baseball Home Videos. Call 1-800-328-8500 to order your copy of Major League Baseball's greatest plays.